of a combination between an infomercial or a promotion and a message. And to tell you the truth, I don't have a problem with that. I never have had a problem with that as long as it is something that promotes the kingdom of Jesus Christ. Sometimes ministers have to do that. Sometimes church families have to do that. And today is such a time that we have to do that. And before I go any further, what I'm talking about is this. Today is the day that we're going to start really pushing and promoting what we know as Operation Christmas Child, the shoebox ministry. This is due if you want to go ahead and mark it on your calendars, if you want to make a mental note or whatever you want to do. These shoe boxes are going to be due here at the church on Sunday, November 19th. They're going to be due on Sunday, November 19th. Now, later on in our sermon here today, right toward the end of the message, somebody who is a whole lot nicer and smarter and prettier than I am is going to come up here and talk to you a little bit more about the logistics and the semantics of how to pack these shoe boxes properly. And I realize that most of us who are here today have been doing this for quite a while and you're familiar with how to do it, but I also understand that sometimes we all need refresher courses, and I also understand that we've had a lot of new members to either join our church or start visiting our church who may not be familiar with the shoebox ministry, and you might need for somebody to sort of come up here and sort of tell you a little bit about this and show you what it means to pack a shoebox. So this individual will be coming up in a little bit and talking to you more about this. But in the meantime, let me just tell you this to just sort of get us going. Each person, and like I say, this individual will be telling you much more about this a little bit later, but for each child that you decide to pack a shoebox for, you're going to need 2 items. Now, this obviously does not include what goes inside the boxes, but you're going to need a box for the stuff to go in, which we've got plenty back there on that back table. You can use your own box if you want to, or you can pick up your own box like this. It's red and green. We've got plenty of them back there, which you can fold yourself, and it's not that hard to fold. I can do it in about 5 minutes, and dumb as I am, that means you can probably do it in about 3. All right? So we got plenty of them back there, more than enough for you to grab on your way out of church today. And as I say, you've got plenty of time between now and November 19th to get one. You also need to get you one of these for each child as a pamphlet. How to pack your shoebox gift, and this is, like I said, you're going to hear more about this in just a few minutes, but you need one of these for each child. That's because you might want to do one for a girl, you might want to do 2 girls and 1 boy, you might want to do 3 boys, whatever. But the point is, you've got to have one of these per child. We've also got plenty of those. At this time, the ones that we're going to have left over after what I'm fixing to do, they also are going to be back there on that back table. And what I'm fixing to do is this. I'm fixing to ask our youth, and we do this every year, I'm fixing to ask our youth to come up, and it doesn't make any difference to me whether you start from the back and work up, or whether you start from the front and work back. Doesn't make any difference to me. But I'm going to ask our youth group, 4 or 5 of them, if they will distribute these pamphlets to the church family and just take as many of these as you think you need. If you think you're going to be, making boxes for 1 child, take 1. If you 2, take 2. 3, take 3, whatever. And as I say, we've got plenty of these. Extra ones will go back on that back table. You'll have plenty of time to get some more if you need them. For whichever members of our church family who are not here today, we're going to get the word out to them, and they'll have plenty of time to get some more. So just take as many of these as you think you need. All right. Okay. Now, while you are getting those, I'll just let the youth group just go aisle by aisle, or however they want to do it. Let me use the analogy here while we get going and this is not the best analogy I could come up with, but it's about as good as I can do. When you think about in school, whether it be in the lower grades or middle grades or high school or college or even higher than that, when you think about maybe taking a test or taking an exam, if you know in advance that you've got a test coming up or an exam coming up, let's just say that your professor or your teacher says, I want you to be prepared, and we're going to be having an exam on Thursday, and the exam covers chapters 3 and 4. Well, you know in advance that you better be prepared for chapters 3 and 4, whatever the subject is. You know that you need to read chapters 3 and 4. I mean, when the exam day comes, it's pretty much my fault if I don't do well on the exam, because I have known in advance that my exam was on chapters 3 and 4. I've had fair warning. That my exam was on chapters 3 and 4. So if I didn't read it, if I didn't prepare myself, it was pretty much my fault. If I did read it, if I did prepare myself, then chances are I'm going to do fairly well on it. So a lot of times we can think of this scripture that we're about to look at today as kind of a final exam of what Jesus tells us in advance that we can think of when it comes to what we call the parable of the final judgment. Now, we get into a little bit of semantics here, theologically, because we get into this thing about grace versus works, or works versus grace. Because we get to thinking about, well, wait a minute, when we read this and we think about, well, Jesus seems to be saying, it's a matter of if we do this, we're going to be judged this way. If we don't do that, we're going to be judged this way. And that he seems to be preaching a work sort of thing, kind of like James does. It's a work sort of thing. If we do this, we're going to go this way. If we don't do that, we're going to go that way. Whereas we read in other parts of the New Testament that it's a grace sort of thing, that it's a matter of faith is what is the deal here. We're saved by our faith, by what we believe in, by who we believe in, and that is Jesus Christ. But it's really not that complicated to understand, I don't think, in my own little uncomplicated, simple way. I truly believe that if somebody, let me try to explain this the best way I know how. This is the best I can do. I've got my little seminary degree, and I've been doing this almost 30 years, and this is the best that my little pea-blank brain knows how to do it. Okay? I just believe that if somebody truly, honestly comes to understand, if they drop to their knees and truly have a heartfelt understanding of how much God loves me. I'll use myself as an example. If I get to a point in my life where I truly come to an understanding, not just up here in my hard noggin, but in here in my heart. If I get to a point in my life where I truly understand that the God of all creation loved me so much that he had enough mercy for me and enough grace on me and enough love for me that he gave his only son for me to lay down his life for me. Okay? If he did that for me, if he died that ugly, painful death for me, and I come to understand that, not just up here, but in here, then it seems to me that after I come to that realization, I almost can't help but start doing good stuff in my life for other folks. I can't help it. It's not like I'm doing it so that God will reward me. I'm not doing it so I can lay down in my bed at night and Lord, be sure to give me some check marks for what I did today. Remember that, earlier today I said some nice things to Lisa. Remember that earlier today somebody called me, Amy called me today and needed my help, and I was right there for her. Lord, don't forget that on Judgment Day. Lord, I went by the grocery store today and I bought some stuff for ACIM. Don't forget that on Judgment Day. That's the furthest thing from my mind. I'm just living my life the best I know how, and these things are just sort of, they're flowing. They're just part of who I am now, because I have come to understand that God accepts me and loves me, and I'm just living my life. It's just an outflow of who I am because of the love I've come to understand He has for me. That's the best way I know to explain it. That's the best I can do. All right? Right. It's right. It's an outflow of being born again of the Spirit of God. That's the best way I know to explain it. So anyway, with that having been said, let's look at this exam that we're being given here to the born-again Christian that we find here in Matthew chapter 25, beginning at verse 31. And I think this has to do so much with what we're talking about today with Operation Christmas Child. I think it has to do so much with what you as a church family do on a consistent basis. And you don't do it, this is what I'm saying, guys, before we read one word of this. You don't do any of this for me to stand up here and praise you. You don't do this for anybody to praise you. You're constantly, all you need to do is be made aware of a need, and you're there. I mean, you're constantly providing needs for Heritage Meadows. I mean, I can't tell you how much you're doing for them up there. You're providing for ACIM. I mean, it's on and on and on. The offerings that you give to international missions, to North American missions. All you need to do is be made aware of these, and you're giving. Over and over and over. I mean, it's just amazing. We have been given to Operation Christmas Child ever since this church has been in existence, and I hope we will for as long as it is in existence. We have no way of knowing how many children throughout the world, and I mean literally throughout the world, have been touched for the gospel because of this, because of you and other churches like you. Because every box that goes to these children, it doesn't just have toys in it and toiletries in it. It has messages about Jesus Christ in it. So, I mean, you're passing the test in flying colors. And here we go. When the Son of Man comes in His glory, and all the holy angels with Him, then He will sit on the throne of His glory. All the nations will be gathered before Him, and He will separate them one from another, as a shepherd divides his sheep from the goats. And He will set the sheep on His right hand, but the goats on the left. Then the King will say to those on His right hand, "Come, you blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me." Then the righteous will answer Him, saying, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? When did we see you a stranger and take you in, or naked and clothe you? Or when did we see you sick or in prison and come to you?" And the king will answer and say to them, assuredly I say to you, inasmuch as you did it unto the least of these my brethren, you did it to me. Then he will also say to those on the left hand, depart from me, you cursed, into the everlasting fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me no food. I was thirsty, and you gave me no drink. I was a stranger, and you did not take me in, naked, and you did not clothe me, sick and in prison, and you did not visit me. Then they also will answer him, saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty, or a stranger, or naked, or sick, or in prison, and did not minister to you? Then he will answer them, saying, assuredly I say to you, inasmuch as you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it to me. And these will go away into everlasting punishment, but the righteous into eternal life. One very interesting point here that I want to make before we go any further, and that is how Jesus equates himself to, quote unquote, the least of these. And I will leave it up to you to go with that. I'll just leave it up to you. But it's interesting how he equates himself to the least of these. Anytime that you feed somebody who's hungry, you're feeding me. Not me, Jesus. The King of the universe. The King of the universe is equating himself to the hungry man who needs a meal. Anytime you give something to drink to somebody who really, really is thirsty, you're giving something to drink to me. Anytime you pay a visit to somebody who is lonely and needs a visit, you're paying a visit to somebody who's lonely, me. Anytime you put clothing on somebody who doesn't have any clothing at all, you're putting clothing on me, the King of the universe. I want to just divert just for a minute or two. I want to go, I'm not getting off the subject here. I'm really not. I'm honest to goodness not. I just want to share just something personal here, very much on the subject. Out of all the list, everything in this list that you just saw, everything in this list, on this list, part of this list, the one thing that you think that you might think that I would be the least likely to pick to talk just a little bit about is the one I want to talk about. And that's the one about going to prison. I realize that may not be for everybody. And I'm not saying it ought to be for everybody. I'm not suggesting it ought to be for anybody. All right? But I'm saying maybe don't completely close your mind to that idea or that thought. And here's what I'm talking about. When I first felt called into the ministry, the year after, I was called in '86. The year after that, I was trying to search myself, search my heart, and trying to find something to do with that calling. I was serving as youth director up at Mount Zion, but I knew that wasn't quite enough. I knew I needed to just find something else to do with this calling. And the Lord led me very directly out to what was then the prison unit that we had here in Granville County. I know a lot of you remember where it was, out just off of 158 there near the Baby Cash's store. Not there now. But I felt a real distinct calling to just stop out there one day. I didn't know a soul, or at least I didn't think I would know a soul out there. But I was just going to stop out there one day, introduce myself, offer my services, and tell them, you know what, would there be any way that I could just come every now and then and maybe lead a Bible study if they needed me to, if they wanted me to. If they didn't want me to, fine. If they did want me to, fine. I just was feeling led to do that. I was just taking a shot in the dark. And I stopped in there one day, one afternoon, and I was greeted by a man named Ted Smiley. I remember it like it was yesterday. And I guess he was the superintendent. I guess that was his official title. But he was in the main office there. And I remember he could not have been any nicer. He told me how active he was in his church. He and his wife, Donna, I remember him specifically telling me her name, that they were very active in their church, which was North Warrenton Baptist Church. And how much he appreciated me stopping in, and how much that they could use somebody doing this particular ministry that I was talking about doing, and that he felt like some of the inmates, he didn't know how many, but he felt like some of them would get something out of this service I was offering, and that they probably would get more out of somebody like me from the outside offering that than somebody from the inside. Even if somebody from the inside was a strong Christian, somebody from the outside who they didn't know coming in kind of fresh and getting something like that started, they probably would appreciate it. So that initial meeting went very well. I didn't do anything that day other than just meet him and kind of get to know him. But anyway, we set up a time for me to start coming and get doing some Bible studies. And it wasn't too much longer after that I got to meet several of the employees, obviously. But one of them was a gentleman by the name of none other than Merrill Jordan.
I wasn't housed there, I worked there.
I was going to let you say that. I was going to let you say that. and one of the things that struck me, Uncle Merrill, and I wanted to say this now, I wanted to wait till now to say this, that one of the things that struck me about Mr. Jordan was, well, two things really. One, first of all, he just carried himself then exactly like he does now, just like a perfect gentleman. As I would see him just carry himself around the yard, if that's what it's called, the campus, whatever, just like a perfect gentleman that he is now. And secondly, I'm not so sure this wasn't more important to me than the first characteristic. He always treated those inmates like human beings. Never looked down on them. Never did. Always treated them like men.
Thank you.
That always stuck with me. I got to know quite a few of those inmates. Several that I can call by name, and I won't bore you with all of that, and I'm about done talking about that. But my point is, while I was there, I enjoyed my time ministering at the prison. Not only would I go out once or twice a week and do Bible studies for about an hour, but they would have these community passes, for lack of a better word, where you could go and, assuming that the inmates were kind of in good stead, you could take them out for a couple of hours and bring them back after a couple of hours, maybe take them to McDonald's or something, and that just did them so much good to just get out for that amount of time. And I know there was one that had a real interest in woodworking. He just enjoyed, I don't know, there was just something, he had an interest in woodworking. And at that particular time, my granddaddy, my daddy's daddy, was an excellent, he had a real talent for woodworking. And he loved for me to take him over and just watch for a few minutes TT do some woodworking. And just little stuff like that. But anyway, I need to get back on subject. But anyway, I guess the point I'm trying to make is that this passage is just so simple, and it's such a blessing. And it's not a passage that I don't think should scare us or alarm us or make us uneasy. I think it's a passage that should give us great peace in its simplicity. Accept God's grace and understand that after accepting God's grace, we have multitudinous, boy, that's a grand word. We have so many opportunities in this world to take the grace that God has extended us, to then, spread it, to pass it on. I'm so glad we sang that song today. To pass it on to other folks who need it. And in so doing, you know what? We're passing it on to Jesus himself. And if you're like me, that kind of gives me a little bit of a thrill. So anyway, with that having been said, I'm going to kind of get out of the way a little bit now, and I'm going to let there are two folks in my life that I live with. These are the two favorite folks in my world, and I'm going to let one of them come up here now and explain a little bit more of the details about packing a shoebox. And this is kind of a reminder to those of you who have done this before, and hopefully a lot of help to those of you who have not done this before. Does this one right here work? I don't know if they'll be able to.
I thought Cameron was gonna do it.
What number is it, Kate?
It looks like 6.
Test. I just want to reiterate what Lynn said in the announcements about going to the distribution center. I think Peggy's going to try to line up the time. This is for men and women, not just women. They do need men there because there's a lot of heavy lifting that goes on. But for the ones of us that have been, it is a wonderful experience. It is a day of work, but you're in the warehouse with just thousands and thousands of shoe boxes that are packed, and they'll announce, like today we're sending them to Mozambique or wherever. So you're there, and then periodically during the day they stop and just the whole warehouse prays for these boxes. So if you can go, it is a wonderful, good experience. I mean, something that you will always remember. So if you can go, let us know so Peggy can hopefully get us on the list. So Everything I'm gonna tell you today is in your little brochure. I do want to tell you that this is not just, these children get these boxes filled with toys and good things, but also before they get the boxes, Samaritan's Purse is partnered with churches in all these countries, and the pastors go out and find churches that will host events for children to come in to receive the boxes. Once they get the boxes, they also get Bible training. They can come back for a 12-week class on discipleship. So this is a ministry to spread the gospel, not just to give a child a gift, but it's so much more. And that's why one of the steps in it is praying. When you fix your box, pray for this child that will receive it so they can hopefully come to know Christ. So what you'll need, of course, is your little pamphlet, like Cam said, and a box. If you want to get one of these pre-made boxes, they're good. If you do your own box, you just get a shoe box. You do have to wrap it separately. You have to wrap the box, and then you have to wrap the lid so you can take it off. So you get that, and you got your little pamphlet. And when you go, it tells you what kind of things to get. First of all, it says get them a toy, a good little toy, a stuffed animal, a little doll, but of course it's got to fit in the shoebox. They did say you could give a soccer ball. So how are you going to get a ball in this box? You can deflate it and get a little small pump, if that would work. I don't know that much about balls and pumps, but you could do that maybe, and I guess they could figure out how to pump it up. But that was in this little suggestion.
No war toys.
No. And then on here, there's been some changes. You used to could send hard candy, but now there is no candy allowed, no toothpaste, nothing that's used or broken, no war items like toy guns, knives, soldiers, no seeds, no chocolate, no food, no liquids, medications, vitamins, nothing that's going to break like a snow globe or anything with glass on it, and no aerosol cans. So you're saying, well, what can I put in the box if I can't put that in there? So I have packed a box, and I'm going to leave it back there on the table with just some items. It's a coloring book, crayons, a stuffed animal, t-shirt, hair bows, hair brushes, washcloths, and you can get, as you can see, you can get right much in a box. So I'll leave it back there, and this has items on it. So once you pack your box, the most important step, like I said, is to pray for that child. You can write a personal little note and put it in the box for the child. You can send your picture of your family. That would be fine. You cannot put any money in the box for the child, because in these countries, a child would get killed for $1. So no money in the box. But you do have to send a $9 donation. And I think that's an increase from last year. This pays for shipping and any other costs that they have. And there are two ways you can donate the $9. So you have to have $9 for each box. So you can go online, that's in the brochure too, and that way if you go online, you will find out where your box goes to. You'll get an email a couple of months later saying your box was delivered to Russia or wherever it went to. So you could find that out. And that, when you do go online, you pay with a credit card, and there's a little label that you will have to print out. And you have to put that label on the front of your box so that they know that it has been paid for. That kind of gives them a message. If you decide you want to write a check, there's an envelope attached here. You just pull it off, fill it out, and only write one check. So if you make 2 boxes, make your check for $18 and put it in just put it in one box. So when they go through them, they will know. So you don't have to write, or if you make 10 boxes, you don't have to write 10 checks. Just one check and earmark it. You make it to the Samaritan's Purse, you earmark it Operation Christmas Child, and 2 boxes or 10 boxes, whatever you want to make, and then just put that one envelope in the very top of your box. and then just close it up. And they do like for you to put a rubber band around it. Don't tape it, because they do have to be opened, and they go through each and every box to make sure there's no inappropriate items in it. That's one of the jobs when you go to the collection center. Each of these boxes, you go through it. If you find something inappropriate, you take it out. If the box doesn't maybe have enough in it, they add stuff to it. So don't fix it so you can't get into it. And then bring it back to church on the 19th of November, and we'll take them from here. I think the Flat River office is going to be collecting them, and then they take them to Charlotte. And then from Charlotte, they go out wherever they need to go. So this is a great family experience to teach your children about giving and helping others. Take them with you shopping, let them pick out the gifts, let them write the little note. It's a great way to get your child focused on helping others. So have fun. It is a lot of fun to do. I enjoyed fixing mine yesterday, so thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. As I said, today was very much a combination of a message. We did use a scripture and had some devotional thoughts today, but also a promotional today. And as I say, I'm good with that. I hope you are too, because it's promoting the kingdom very much. So let's stand and go into our time of invitation.